Good evening and welcome back. This is Dr. Butler again. I'm going to be doing an in vivo overview. I found a really helpful guide that was put out by the creators of in vivo. I know we pretty much talked a little bit about in vivo in class, and we tried to do sort of a project there, but it really doesn't, the program, uh, it's very difficult to manage if you don't have all of the things needed to conceptualize what you are coding. So I thought this would be a little bit more helpful than to just go into the actual software. The software, I actually got the trial of the software, but it allowed me to actually hold on to the important parts of my findings, which was the reporting. So I'm going to kind of work my way down to that particular portion and actually share that with you, so that when you all get to that point, you at least will know what it looks like. The handbook for in vivo is very helpful. It comes with, it's pretty much out on the web, but again, I'm going to definitely share that with you guys. It kind of goes, goes through a welcome page and using in vivo help, but the most important part that you want to go directly to would be the in vivo workspace, and it introduces the workspace. Pretty much it gives you different parts of it, the ribbon, and this is kind of a sort of a, pretty much what it looks like. It has different, this is the main content area, and of course you have the tabs above it. Your ribbon, your use of the ribbon is pretty much, it looks a lot like your Microsoft programs, and it has a file, a home, create, data, analyze, query, explore, layout, and view. And the first part, the file, you have access to the project properties. It keeps an event log every time you come in and save. You can open, save, and copy projects. And that's a really good feature if you want to copy it and send it to another location that you'll be working. It's a really good, really good, good software tool to have. Print, of course, and print preview, license activation, and software, any software updates. Down below, it kind of shows you different ways in which you can interact with the ribbon. The first part, of course, you have your home, your, all of these right here that were said earlier. You have your nodes, your classifications, collections, queries, reports, any models or folders. Okay. Alrighty. With the Create tab, again, that's where you can focus on uploading your articles. Now, when you get to the actual using this, I'm assuming for your findings section of your dissertation, word to the wise, unlike Mendeley, in vivo does not filter your authors. So therefore, you would have to name your files accordingly. So for example, all of my articles, what I did was I pretty much named them from the author and the year. And that's very helpful, especially if you're working from anywhere from 30 to 60 articles for a systematic review. It's, once you do that and have it in that particular format, then in vivo will put it in alphabetical order for you, but it will not automatically take out, you know, authors and filter them for you, because NVivo is not a repository, it's a qualitative software. So what goes into this program is going to ultimately come out. So, you know, in order to have an efficient data set, you want to definitely make sure those articles are labeled accordingly. So if you're naming the articles, preferably how I named them: last name, first initial, you know, last name, initial, comma, last name, initial, comma, last name, you know, however many authors you have, then I put the year. And what I did was I went on and put the year in colons, and that's how I saved each article. So it's a little work before uploading it, but I promise you, in the outcome, it will be much, much easier to retrieve the articles that you need. Okay. So with basically with once you have uploaded the articles, all of your, you know, we'll call them formatted articles, you're ready to go through each article and pretty much go through all of them and start labeling them. Okay. Now your nodes, I know we were sort of going through this differentiation between your nodes and your themes. Your nodes and your themes are different. Your nodes, think of your nodes as a big umbrella that incorporates everything that should be with your theme. Okay, so that's all the definitions, that's everything related to that particular theme. Okay, so think of the node as something like your theme is under there, but like all of your definitions, everything that's supposed to be in that umbrella is there. That is considered a node. Okay, so keeping that in mind, all of your you know, everything that you highlight that resonates that particular thing is going to go under that particular node. Okay, so hold that thought for just a second. And this also sort of gives you more understanding about, you know, your nodes and types of nodes within your data. Okay. So it gives you it kind of differentiates them. Okay, your theme nodes, your themes are topics that you find in your source material. These nodes might be descriptive. This text is about that topic. Or more analytical. This issue matters because, and they're referred to theme nodes, and it's hyperlinked, and it gives you a little bit more information. Case nodes are units of observation and might include people, places, sites, or organizations, and you can assign demographic attributes to the cases in your project and use them as a basis for comparison. And it gives you a little bit more information about case nodes. So a lot of, I know with my particular data set, I had about 3 cases that I ended up not incorporating. But if I did incorporate them, they would be considered case nodes. And it's pretty much, it just talks about, it just actually, cases are basically, they just talk about everything that has to do with that particular node. Okay, so if I, you know, one of my themes, or themes, if you will, one of my themes was informality, which means that millennials are very informal. They don't, you know, power means almost nothing to them. So if I had a whole case that explicitly talked about that, then that would be put under something called a case note. But luckily I use all themes and theme notes, and the theme notes were actually extracts from the actual articles, different articles that I did have. And again, cases can also be, it says survey respondents, interview participants. Okay. So anything else outside of your normal, looking for themes within your literature. So back to coding, you want to definitely, the approach that I used was creating theme nodes manually. And this sort of came from the fact that, when we looked at the Mendeley in part 1 of the video, we looked at the Mendeley articles, and from my literature review, I just picked up on a lot of words that resonated, things that would retain a millennial, but it wasn't particularly that easy. I wanted to, really include the attributes of public sector organizations. Sometimes with context, sometimes with research questions, it's all about the context. Millennials, okay, we can talk about millennials being retained in organizations all day long, but how are they retained in public sector organizations? So it kind of changes the wording a little bit. So I had to kind of look at, and that's where a lot of the articles come in at, because you have to really look at, okay, millennials and public sector organizations. What are the commonalities? What's retaining them in this particular place? So, long story short, what I did was I identified about 11 things that I found from my literature and from my reading and research, and I listed them. So what I did was I put them in as nodes, and those again are my umbrella terms. And those nodes basically were my themes. Okay, so everything else that kind of resonated within that particular theme and node were were things that I was coding. If I talked about informality, I saw in a lot of articles that millennials don't care too much about having formal relationships with managers. They feel like they're on the same level. So that right there would resonate informality, and I would code that as such. So it's all, and it's almost like you have to have a relationship with your research, and this really shows how your research evolves and how you can pick up on certain things, even though they don't directly say it. They pretty much have that definition incorporated just by the context in the words that they use, or just by hinting toward that particular note. So here, creating theme nodes manually, again with your ribbon, you'll have code, case, and relationship, and I pretty much just stuck with the node. Every time and it was almost like I was annotating within NVivo as well. I would sort of highlight the term, right click, and it'll have something like code in NVivo, and I would code in NVivo, and you'll have a drop down of all of the themes that you've already placed within Vivo, and tack on those particular nodes. And after a while, it adds up. You might have maybe, say if you work with 30 articles, you might have 10 articles under one particular theme. You might have 3 under another. So it's very interesting in how it works. Okay. All right. So once, and I just wanted to kind of go through and look at some of my some of the things that I downloaded from NVivo. This is my code book. And I put findings chapter because ultimately all of these things went into my findings chapter, which was chapter 4 of my dissertation. And basically, you know, your findings chapter is everything. Okay, so what did you find? Everything that comes out of your systematic review. And as you can see, all of my nodes or themes, if you will, these were all of the nodes, but these are, you know, these are themes right here. My nodes is basically everything, okay? And these are my themes. So my themes were informality, civility, immediate feedback, computer literacy, and as you can see with my description, for each description, I sort of gave a broad description of what each thing meant, so that when I would see an article that resonated, immediate feedback, diversity, flexibility, they, guess what? That would get that particular, I would pin that particular theme to that, or node to that, if you will. And as you can see, my sources, these are the number of sources that were used that were applicable to each theme. The references, however, are always gonna sort of be a little bit more or equal to, because, you know, I can have one article, but I've referenced it 3 different times as it pertains to this particular word. Okay, so and as you can see with qualitative data, this is how you have to pretty much read it and, of course, convey it in your findings chapter. Get rid of this. Another thing that I did with the particular notes that I had, okay, actually, let's see, I had the wrong one here. Now my code book findings, let me see, then I just put this on here, I'm sorry. My findings in chapter 5, what this is it's a downloaded, it's pretty much an exported view of all the references, the actual references that I've had. So for example, for informality, it gives me NVivo, when you're ready to export a file, you know, export a project, this is what it looks like. It looks a little weird, but this is what it looks like, minus all of this stuff over here. So let's say with computer literacy, what it does is it takes everything from that code book, and it takes all of the references that you've made from several articles, and it puts it in a format just like this. Okay, so as you can see, it looks a little weird, but Cahill and Sadak, that is one of my authors, and it has the actual year, and it gives you the number of references coded and how much coverage. And as you can see, it has everything that I went on and annotated, or pretty much you know, noted within the software. Okay. only thing, again, that it does not do is it did not give me a page number. Okay, so when you have this type of information, which is robust, this is good because ultimately this is your findings chapter. Ultimately, what you have to do if you're taking information from those particular articles, you need page numbers. So the way in which you go back to get the page number is somewhat similar to that of Mendeley. You have to actually go back to the actual article and get the page number. The reason why NVivo does not get the page numbers and things of that sort is because NVivo accepts all types of files. They accept videos, they accept pictures, and what goes in comes out. So it hasn't really created a way to get the actual numbers off of the PDFs as of to date. So you do have to sort of go back and and get those page numbers if if you choose to cite directly and get that information within your findings. And it's worth it because it makes your findings a little bit more robust. Okay. And I will definitely share a portion of this with you guys so you would at least know what it looks like. The important thing is to study pretty much what comes out of this particular database. Coding it is actually the easy part. It's just actually, going through and identifying how to convey or how to disseminate the information once you find it. Same with civility. And again, it pulls it from the code book, and it sort of pulls everything that you've covered or everything that you've coded, okay, for each theme or node. Okay. Same with this. Cahill and SIDEC was under my other theme, but it also said a lot about some other themes as well. So different things like this, if civility was a really important one for millennials as it pertained to public sector organizations, because a lot of public sector organizations, especially our state institutions, municipal institutions, federal organizations and institutions, they're very big on civil servant, civility. The rights of people. And so millennials cherish that public sector attribute. And I had to make that, however, connect. For example, millennials have a desire to work in an organization with a purpose and values that resonates civility. Okay? And even though it didn't say civility, you have to look for terms that resonate and match that particular theme. Okay? And that is your evidence. Okay? Same here. They also use teamwork, personal productivity, self-management, personally fulfilling work, and social consciousness. That speaks to civility. Okay? And so here, one of the most contested characteristic of the members of the millennial generation is the nature of their social service orientation. Okay? A number of popular experts characterize them as civically involved, socially conscious, and interested in helping others and serving problems of the world. Okay? So all of these are different ways, pretty much your data that supports what you say. Okay. And again, you know, once you download, what happens is once you download your results, it sort of takes it out of NVivo and exports it. You can do the same thing when you actually go through your themes one by one, but it all depends on how you would go about you know, how many themes you have. Some people only have 4 themes, some people only have 5. For me, I had 11. So it was beneficial to me to go through each theme one by one rather than go through each article, because that would have been very time consuming. Qualitative research is a very active, reiterative process, and it can also get exhausting. So sometimes, you know, if you find yourself with a lot of themes, and you know, you're coding and coding and coding, you're like, wow, when is this going to, you know, when is this going to ever stop? You have to almost do it in, you know, sort of carve pieces of it out and do it maybe 3 themes, you know, per hour, things of that sort. But you want to definitely keep 11 was a little on the big side. You want to definitely keep your themes a little bit more, you know, no more than 10, I would say, to keep it manageable, because you want your findings to be very rich and robust. Okay. And again, this right here was directly downloaded from NVivo, and so this is one of the tasks that you have to produce before you know, before actually coding. You know, NVivo allows you to create your nodes, okay, and provide a description so that you can keep track of what data belongs where. And it also gives you pretty much a running, you know, quantitative data of what you actually coded as you go along. So this is a very, very good chart to incorporate in your findings chapter. Okay. Charts are very good to use. Your diagrams, your NVivo specifically has a comparison diagram that's very, very good to use. This also gives you a step-by-step explanation on how to pretty much create a comparison diagram and then copy one to put within your actual document. The comparison diagrams, I'm going to see if I have one left. Comparison diagrams are quite nice. They pretty much kind of give you a representation of graphical representation of pretty much all the nodes that were used, and it pretty much is an easier way of kind of looking at it. Normally a lot of it's sort of like bar charts. It gives you pretty much a good way, and this is an example of one. If you kind of look at this chart, it gives you informality was basically the highest, had the highest coverage within the articles, within the data that was used. After that was flexibility and training and formal activities, and then of course immediate feedback. Those were my top 4 that were very much in the data as being motivating factors for millennial retention. And as you can see, it also gave me a count. This is just an example of what I said in the beginning, how I sort of labeled my articles here, and they're all labeled like that. This sort of gave me an individual view of all of my coverage for all of the themes. So immediate feedback had 5.12, civility 2.86, computer literacy only really had 3.81, diversity had 1.16, financial, believe it or not, money does not keep them there. That was really interesting to find out. Big coverage for flexibility. Lack of vision was 1.98. They won an organization with a vision. If they don't see a purpose of your organization, or if you don't convey that to them, then they are gone. Meaningful activities, pretty good coverage for meaningful activities. Training and formal activities, 5.49. They like to be, they love training opportunities. And trust and support was pretty big. They need to know that you're trustworthy and transparent. So these are just a couple things that you're able to write about and speak upon. You can copy these particular graphs and put them in your findings chapter and talk about them. And that's a sure way to really make sure that you're covering all of your, every aspect of your research question and your propositions, if you had any. Okay. So that ends this particular recording. Again, I will definitely send the link out with the other two links for these particular lectures. If you have any further questions, I will definitely leave my information there as well. Good luck in your research endeavors. Have a great night.